Good afternoon. Welcome to Local Sports Wrap-Up. Today is December the 19th. I'm Ken Brown, and I have the privilege of being here with Odds Jones today.
Privilege, you say?
Yeah, it's a privilege. Odds, how you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Just got to, just mentioned December 19th. Like, Christmas is barreling toward us, I think, a little quicker than Santa expected.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's right around the corner. Yeah. We got 6 days, maybe even till Christmas. But you know what we got? We got a lot of positive sports going on around the city and then downriver. How about your Detroit Lions?
You always say about your Detroit Lions. Anyone who watches our station would know that, I'm not exactly a diehard. But I give them a lot of credit because when they were 1-6, I gave them a whole lot of criticism, and it was all deserved. Sometimes it's nice to be proven wrong, and since they were 1-6, they've flipped the script, gone 6-1, sit at 7-7, and they're really likely in control of their own destiny. Beating the Jets yesterday on the road should have been the toughest game remaining on their schedule. I mean, you never know. The NFL's a crazy league. But if they win out, sure looks like they're playoff bound. And you had the Giants, of course, downing the Commanders. So the Giants are definitely in the driver's seat with one spot left for either the Commanders, the Lions, or the Seahawks. And the way they're playing and the way the schedules look, I don't hate the position they're in.
No, they got a big game this week against Carolina. Mm-hmm. Win that, I think I've seen where it's 25% chance for them to make the playoffs if they win with their win yesterday, and then it only increases if they beat Carolina.
Now here's the thing, though. Now that they've gotten themselves to this point, they had better make the playoffs because when they're sitting at 1-6, same old Lions.
Yeah.
But now you're at 7-7. You make the playoffs, great. Maybe we can all say they're finally moving forward. But now that you've got yourself in that position, if you fail, if you fumble this away, same old Lions.
Yeah.
So go out and win those games.
For the contingent of Detroit, Metro Detroit, I hope they win.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge Lion fan, but it's good to see them prosper. It makes the community better, I think. People are happy. It's like their Super Bowl. And so good luck to the Detroit Lions as they play Carolina. Dan Campbell has pulled a rabbit out of his hat for sure.
Well, I said this earlier in the season on Sportsline. I like Dan Campbell. I wasn't sure that his message was resonating when they were sitting at 1-4, then 1-5, then 1-6. I'm glad to see they've turned it around. But the history of the team and the ownership, I'm not one to each season grab up that Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid and go,
yeah, this is good. Yeah.
I look at results. Now, the recent results are good, but you got to go out now and seal the deal and make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think this isn't local, but we saw a little history yesterday, and that was Minnesota's down 33-0 at the half, right? The Vikings down 33-0.
Yeah.
Come back and they win it.
And not just down 33-0 at the half. Was it 33-7 with about 4 minutes to go in the third?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the type of stuff, like every once in a while, you hear about a comeback like that in high school football. But for it to happen at the professional level, I imagine people in Indianapolis are getting fired today.
Yeah. And I don't know who, because they already hired a guy from the broadcast booth, right? So
the buck's not very high there right now.
It's crazy. Now, on the local scene, we'll talk a little hoops.
All right, we got plenty of scores. So start with girls basketball here on December 15th. This was the Huron League. I had Groseal in overtime, downing New Boston Huron 60-56. And on that same day, Riverview Gabriel Richard beats Monroe Jefferson 34-21. A few other scores on here. December 13th, going back a couple days, same Richard team beat New Boston Huron 39-34.
Okay.
And who's this? 12-14. Riverview beats Monroe St. Mary's 47-28. And then on December 17th, so what was that, Friday?
Yeah.
Saturday
Saturday
game.
The 17th, yep.
Riverview Gabriel Richard, again, victorious, 34-21. Well, okay, that was the same game. Okay, over Jefferson.
Okay. Now, as far as the Wyandotte Bears girls basketball team, they've actually went on a little winning streak of their own, similar to our Detroit Lions, right? They started off with 3 losses when they lost to Grosse Ile, 57-50. We talked a little bit about that. They lost to Woodhaven, 52-31. And then they got in the game with Trenton where they lost 51-41. However, since then, they've been on a mighty streak of their own. The Lady Bears, they beat Southgate 53-18. That's an impressive win.
That's
there.
an angry win right there.
Yeah, it's our turn. It's our turn. Yeah, let's let little Leslie shoot a few threes.
That's right.
But no, that's a good win there. And then Wyandotte actually had a nail biter against Dearborn Edsel Ford, where they won 28-27. So that's a good win for them. And then the other team downriver that's doing really well is Woodhaven. Now, Woodhaven did lose to Riverview. I heard you mention Riverview. So Riverview must have a really good team because they beat Woodhaven 57-31. However, since then, Woodhaven's beat Taylor 39-24. And then they spanked Lincoln Park 66-8. Wow. Yeah, I said 66-8.
Now, so that must be a solid team because it was in the last episode we did. We know Lincoln Park has a player, Isabel Bartel, who went off for what was it, nearly 40
32
points
or something.
So,
yeah.
Wow,
I wonder, did she have all 8?
It wouldn't surprise me. Man, it's just Woodhaven, as we all know, if you know anything about high school athletics in this area, Woodhaven they've got the cheddar to pump into all their programs. Because I mean, they don't seem to be. Doesn't seem to be a single sport that they're bad in. I mean, they may not win the division or win the league outright, but they're always right there in the mix, almost in every sport.
And I think it has to do with, I agree with you, where resources would play a huge part. Also, though, the schedule. Because if we're sitting here saying in the Huron League that Riverview is the class of the Huron League, and Woodhaven played them, yeah, they lost, but they played them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big thing, getting you ready for the Downriver League. And then they did lose last week to Livonia Stevenson, who was really good, a really good team. And they lost 39-36. So not only resources, but also having the courage, right, or the courage to play tough teams.
Yeah, steel sharpens steel.
Steel sharpens
steel. And Livonia Stevenson's another school. I had a friend that went there. They're not hurting for resources either.
No.
Yeah.
No, so that's good. What about, you got any boys basketball?
I've got some other scores here.
What's that?
I think this is also girls, actually.
Okay, good, perfect.
Let's see. So December 8th, a lot of scores here. Edsel Ford over Lincoln Park 37-20. Gibraltar Carlson over Southgate. Southgate's just getting beat up by everyone, 50-14.
Ooh.
Maybe a short bench there. Game you mentioned earlier, Trenton over Wyandotte 51-41. Then on the 9th, you had Taylor over Allen Park 44-38. Garden City over Lincoln Park 37-29. Riverview, that was the game you mentioned, over Woodhaven 57-21. Trenton over Flat Rock 39-27. Riverview Gabriel Richard gets beat by, is that Macomb Lutheran?
Okay.
37-21. A lot of scores on here. So the girls basketball season in full swing. What do we have? I know I saw coming up, I thought we had a few games listed for the girls. Maybe I'm mistaken.
No, I think that moving forward, like our next show, what we'll try to do is have those standings. It'd be good to have like where they are at that point. Because you're right, things are ramping up so fast and they're playing 2 and 3 games a week. So now they're into conference play, which should give us a good idea of what people are going to do for the districts. So I'm super excited to see that the Bears have, like I said, they won a couple in a row and they're getting better. And then we can just track Riverview and maybe that'll be our team for Huron League. As far as Huron League boys basketball, Riverview boys actually beat Monroe St. Mary's 54-40. Grosse Ile beat Huron, New Boston Huron. That score was 47-44. So that sounds like an instant classic anyway, 3-point game. And then the Riverview boys actually beat Dearborn 57-48. And so that's for our Huron League boys basketball. I also have some downriver scores for boys basketball. Lincoln Park actually beat Allen Park 56-31. Brownstown beat Taylor 75-50. Edsel Ford beat Gibraltar Carlson 41-35. And then the Wyandotte Bears, they beat Southgate 67-45. And then on the 15th, Edsel Ford beat Wyandotte 53-47. Gibraltar Carlson lost to Allen Park 49-43. Woodhaven beat Lincoln Park 42-39. And then Woodhaven beat Lincoln Park 42-39. And then Taylor took that loss that they took to Woodhaven out on John Erb Academy, maybe? Anyway, the score.
They took it out on someone who didn't have much of a basketball program.
Yeah, 71-44. So I'm sure that made them feel good. That was a good holiday present for them. Inner City Baptist 61, Allen Park 59. So that was a local inner city rivalry there. And then Stevenson beat Gibraltar 74-46. Southgate and Crestwood play tonight. And then tomorrow, Cabrini plays Southgate. Woodhaven plays Carlson. Edsel Ford plays Trenton. All of those are at 6:30. So let's just make sure that that's a note that you need to make sure you put down. Those games are at 6:30 and not 7 this year. And then Wyandotte plays Allen Park. So basketball's up and rampant. They're not waiting for Christmas.
Yeah, and that's the Taylor score. The game that they lost, who was it to? Woodhaven you mentioned?
Yeah, 75-50.
Yeah, so it was a couple years ago that they consolidated schools in Taylor. And I remember at the time, the talk was, that it might dramatically improve their football team.
Yeah.
And, thus far, it doesn't seem to have had as pronounced an effect as maybe they had hoped.
Right. So that was Kennedy, Truman, and it's got to be one more.
One time I think they had 3.
Yeah.
And I think a few years ago, when they consolidated, it had already been moved down to 2.
I
believe they might be down to 1 now.
Yeah.
It hasn't translated to many wins on the football field anyways.
And I think that it's going to pay dividends down the line because I remember Kennedy was really strong in baseball. But Truman will be really good in basketball. So by putting them all together, you're hoping you're getting the best of both worlds, right? So we'll see what Taylor has up their sleeve. They better get it together quick. And if they continue to play the Little Sisters of the Poor, was that Bloomfield Tech Academy, then maybe they can.
Yeah, Taylor's always had a strong baseball program. That's the city that hosts the Junior League World Series. And, of course, produced Steve Avery, who was a star pitcher for the Braves, drafted by the Tigers.
Funny story about Steve Avery, right? So I'm playing adult baseball, 30 and over, whatever it is. And Steve Avery had retired from the major leagues at this point in time. But guess what? He plays on this against us.
Did you know?
Yeah,
going into the
all
game.
day.
Okay.
Yeah, all day. Yeah, so everybody's geeked, but thank God he wasn't pitching.
Okay,
he was hitting, and he's hitting bombs.
Really?
Yeah. So
well, yeah.
You're like, what? You're a major league pitcher, but he was a major league baseball player. Period.
National League though, so he was batting.
That's correct, and it looked like it. He was head and shoulders above us. And so that's good that you said that. Steve Avery, I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
Loved that. Well, me as a kid, collecting baseball cards. 'Cause that was the first thing I collected was baseball cards. That was like the first sport I fell in love with. Later, hockey became my number one sports love. But that '90s Braves pitching staff, Tom Glavine, Steve A, Greg Maddux.
And the
Man.
other Metro Detroit guy, well, he's from Lansing, John Smoltz.
Oh, that's right.
John Smoltz.
I mean, my God,
Yeah, Smoltz.
they should have won multiple World Series.
Yes, I'm glad that they got to one.
Yeah.
And Smoltz, he was great because he started out as a starting pitcher and he ended up coming as a Cy Young winning bullpen guy. So Smoltz had the best of both worlds. Weird fact? He was drafted by the Tigers.
With Smoltz, not Avery.
Smoltz was
Okay.
drafted by. Smoltz definitely was drafted by the Tigers, and they traded him in 1987
Yep. Okay. Was it
for
them?
Doyle Alexander because they needed him for that playoff run, and Doyle Alexander won 9 in a row, so it looked great at the time.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
down the line, Smoltz plays 20 years, and he sets all these records in the National League. So
I remember looking at the back of my baseball cards and learning that fact because it was something I asked my dad about. Because at that point, Smoltz was a household name. Like, Dad, the Tigers had him?
and why did they get rid of him?
Yeah.
Doyle Alexander. That's exactly why they got rid of him.
Yeah.
I got some positive news
Okay.
for the Copeland Senior Citizens presents. It's a $2 drop-in shuffleboard. All right, it's the second and fourth Fridays of every month, and they're going to go from 11:30 to 1:30. Equipment will be provided. Now, the thing that we have to research is when a senior becomes a senior.
Right. You were inquiring
Because
before the
I
show.
definitely was thinking that I could be pretty good at that shuffleboard there.
You want to be one of the young guns.
Yeah. I want to be the one that they bring in. What is it called? Ringer.
the ringer, yeah.
I'll be the ringer, but I'm not really good at shuffleboard. But I think I can learn. Anyway, second and fourth Fridays, shuffleboard. They're drop in, and it's got to be at the Yak, right? Copeland Senior Citizens presents $2.
Yak or Copeland,
No,
perhaps.
Benjamin Franklin Yak Arena, 3rd Street.
People might want to confirm it. That I think that's just showing where the Yak's located. That it says Copeland Senior Citizens makes me think that it might be at the Copeland Center. I guess
Okay.
if you're interested, you should definitely look into further information. Call up the Yak.
Yeah.
They'll have the information for you.
And by next week, I'll know because I want to see if I qualify for the senior. The other thing, I talked to Coach Jet Set Janeski,
Ah, yes.
and as we're shooting this show tomorrow, he's going to Hawaii,
Of course.
right?
Official business or pleasure?
It's straight pleasure. However, he has the Wyandotte Lady Bears. They're 4-0 in bowling right now. I know they beat Taylor. Well, he said Taylor was the class. They haven't played them yet, but they beat Lincoln Park. And he feels good about it. Angelina is his star.
Yeah.
You know, and this is her 4th year with him, so I'm sure she's doing really well. She did states last year and the year before. So I know she's trying to improve, but they've started out the best you can be. They're 4-0. And so the Lady Bears go get a strike. Strike it.
You bowl at all, Ken?
Very, very little. But, I like the modern bowling when you throw it and it tells you how many miles per hour you throw, and I just try to throw as hard as I can every time.
Okay.
Not a good bowler at all.
Yeah. No, I'm not a good bowler either. I did bowl briefly in high school. I was in a league, and I had fun doing it. But if Marty could see my form, he'd be aghast. It was terrible. Like I was kind of like an out of control bowler. I kind of had a tendency to try and throw it as hard as I could, except I had this weird backspin. And when people didn't know any better, like when I was throwing it good, because it had such velocity, it could hit the pocket and the pins would explode. But if I was off even by a fraction, gutter. But if I got into a nice run where I was throwing a few, people who didn't know any better, like, wow, like, how do you throw that crazy backspin? And I just like, I don't know, like, it was just terrible, terrible form. And I never got myself, I could never throw a straight ball, and I could never throw like a proper curve.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. But I had this crazy backspin release that was almost all or nothing. So
My bowling is, I can remember being 9, 10, 11. all 3 of those years, and we'd go to the bowling alley, and I'm playing video games until it's my turn.
Right.
And then they'd be yelling down the alley to come and get it. Then you run down there, throw 2, and then go back to the game, the video game. So I didn't have a great teacher in the beginning, so I didn't do it. And I thought about it often when Marty would talk all this. He could teach anybody, you know. I could give him a challenge.
Yeah, I think we both could.
Yeah, I could challenge.
What video game would you run off and play?
Pac-Man at that time,
Okay.
Asteroid, something. Hey, hold this, do this until I come back. And I just run back and forth from the video game to the lane. And we got free pizza and pop. So it was a good time. You know, it's a good introductory. But I've also been with Marty long enough to know that it has very little to do with how hard you're throwing it.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, you got to kind of have that little. If they're not spinning it, you're not bowling for real.
I mean, Marty certainly would be more of an authority than me, but I think bowling in particular, like your technique is paramount. And my technique's terrible. So,
And I think that I get where people that golf like bowling, because there's kind of like you're saying, they're both technical sports where I got to do this, just little things, right? Just little things are so huge in
taking care of the details,
games. Yeah. But I'd love for people, coaches and ADs, to email us. Let us know what you're doing. We're at Local Sports Wrap Up. Email us. Let us know how the teams around here are doing. We'd love to hear and celebrate kids, you know, for what they're doing out here.
Well, we got some hockey scores that we can get to.
Okay.
All right, we'll run through these. Starting with December 6th. In overtime, Brownstown Woodhaven beats Cabrini 9-8. Ooh, high-scoring hockey game. The December 7th pair of games, Allen Park 6-4 over. What is this? Liggett?
Yeah, Grosse Pointe Liggett.
Okay. And then the Bears, 4-3 over Pioneer in overtime. And we just heard, sounds like Coach Adam DeSain is going to be on the Bears Den today.
Okay.
So he was on a couple weeks ago, so it'll be fun to get an update. December 9th, again, Liggett, this time 8-0 over Carlson. And man, Southgate, other than their football team, looks like their sports programs are struggling. They get beat by Tawas 13-5. And you and I were kind of looking at that game, like, because there's a mercy rule in high school hockey, but maybe there's some little clause where if it's already in the third period, it doesn't apply.
Yeah. Because they beat them 13-2, and we would think that.
This one was 13-5.
Okay.
So.
That's 8.
Okay, yeah. So that one's okay, but there's a score later that we're going to note.
Okay.
Got myself confused. December 10th, Midland Dow, 2-1 defensive affair over Allen Park. And now here's the one we're talking about. Wyandotte beats Troy 13-2. Now we covered those same two teams a few weeks back. Wyandotte won 8-0, and at the end of the second they called it. But here this one plays out until the very end, and it's 13-2. So my guess is it didn't get to be an 8-goal stretch until sometime in the third, and maybe they just play them out at that point.
They just let them play. Yeah.
But even if that's true, that's a lot of goals they must have put up in the third period alone.
Yeah. Coach DeSena, it sounds like that's good that he's going to be on Bears Den later because he's got those guys cranking it up.
Well, and I think, and again, like they're playing at a pretty significant deficit of players. They followed up on December 14th by beating Southgate 8-0. And then Riverview, Gabriel Richard 5-1 over Trenton. That's a bit of a surprise there. And then on the 15th, Grozeal 4-3 over Gibraltar Carlson. And rounding it out, December 16th, Detroit Country Day 8-4 over Allen Park. And a couple other, then we have a score on that one. Gabriel Richard 9. I'm not sure what that is there for Brown. Looks like they downed Brownstown Woodhaven on the ice. So yeah, no, it'd be fun to get Coach DeSena back in here, get an update on the Bears, because I think we covered it on the last episode. Just running 6 forwards, 4 defensemen. So missing a third of your defensemen and half of your forward skaters. So a lot of ice time to go around, though. So if your kid likes to play a lot, that's the team to be on.
And I think that if they're winning 13-2 and 8-0, that we're probably going to have some record-breaking scores just because they have so much ice time and then they're scoring so many points.
Well, and it's good to see them. I think those type of scores will attract the attention of other people who might be interested but maybe feel tepid about approaching the sport. People want to go where there's winning and there's excitement.
Sure.
So, I think and when Adam was in studio, just hearing him talk to Jason and interacting a bit, and being a little bit hockey obsessed myself, listening to him talk, you can tell even when a coach is mailing it in or faking it a bit, and he's not. Like, he knows his stuff, and listening to him talk about hockey was engaging because yeah, he knows, he's using all the right words. He knows what he's talking about.
And I think that how you said that baseball cards were kind of your main thing, like got you into the sports realm. When I think about hockey, I think about resources. Like, you gotta have resources.
Yeah.
And it starts with the yak, right? And little skater and baby skater and whatever free skates you get. But when I was coming up, hockey wasn't, in my neighborhood, a thing that you did. Now, I heard you say Ann Arbor Pioneer, and they had phenomenal hockey teams when I was younger.
Sure.
But they had the resources. Just hearing some of those teams, I wonder, is that Southgate's issue?
It may be the case. I mean, hockey is expensive. I didn't play hockey as a kid. I played street hockey.
Got you.
I would bring it up to my mom. She'd say, we don't have money for that.
Yeah.
And now I get it because my kids ask me, and I'm like, maybe Little League, maybe soccer. Hockey's expensive, yeah. And definitely, you think about what it takes to maintain ice.
Yeah.
Even in a state like Michigan, resources. And, a lot of places, a lot of communities don't have the resources for that.
No, that's real. But I'm glad that Wyandott's doing really well in hockey. Can't wait till Coach DeSena comes on Bears Den. Make sure you watch that because that's what they need, man. They need a little. I know when I drive through the community and I see that state championship sign, it makes you feel good about it, So as we, I want to just tell you Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
I
Merry
guess
Christmas.
as we wrap up. It's been a phenomenal year. We're getting ready for 2023. The local sports scene is really, really hot right now. You got a lot of things going. We'd like to get way more information from others, but I just wanted to tell the listeners, Merry Christmas. Thanks for watching Local Sports Wrap Up, and I appreciate Oz Jones sitting in.
Anytime. Always have fun.
Yeah. Take care.